Is this the standard we hire now? The words cut through the marble lobby of Ashford Industries like a whip cracking against stone. Victoria Ashford's voice carried that particular quality, not loud but sharp enough to stop 50 people mid-stride. Thursday morning, 7:15, and the executive entrance gleamed with fresh polish that Marcus Jensen had applied 90 minutes earlier. He stood motionless, hands gripping the cleaning cart that blocked her path. His head stayed down. The cartwheels had locked again, third time this week, and he'd been wrestling the damn thing when the elevator chimed and she stepped out. Now his 5'9" frame seemed to shrink as her shadow fell across the industrial gray of his uniform. Victoria moved closer. Close enough that Marcus caught the scent of her perfume, something expensive that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Close enough to see the perfect press of her charcoal suit, the blonde hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. The diamond studs that caught the lobby's recessed lighting. People like you think you're invisible. She let the words hang in the air. Employees frozen at the security desk, at the coffee station, halfway through the revolving doors. Some had phones out. Marcus felt their eyes, their pity, their relief that they weren't him. That no one notices your incompetence. Victoria's heels clicked as she circled the cart, examining the scattered cleaning supplies like evidence at a crime scene. Spray bottles, rags, the mop bucket with its perpetually squeaky wheel. Marcus had worked here 3 years and never once left his equipment where executives walked. Never once. But the wheel had jammed and he'd needed both hands to force it, and in that 10-second window, she'd emerged from the elevator like a missile locked on target. I notice everything. The lobby returned to motion, carefully, quietly, everyone suddenly very interested in their phones or their coffee or the middle distance. Marcus straightened slowly, meeting her eyes for the first time. Ice blue, the kind of cold that suggested she'd perfected this look long before she became a billionaire CEO. The kind of cold that came naturally. He opened his mouth. The apology formed on his tongue because that's what you did when you were invisible, when you needed the job, when a 6-year-old daughter waited at daycare depending on you for everything that mattered. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll move it right away. Victoria's laugh came out sharp and mirthless. You'll move it. That's your response. She turned to address the lobby, making sure her voice carried to every corner, every witness. Let me tell you what I see, Mr. Jensen. The use of his name startled him. She knew his name. Of course she did. She knew everything, noticed everything, just like she'd said. The personnel files, the background checks, the 3-paragraph summary of his existence that human resources kept on file. I see a cleaning cart blocking executive access. I see equipment scattered like this is some kind of garbage dump. I see someone who clearly has no idea how to do the simplest job in this building. Marcus pulled the cart aside. The wheel protested with a metal shriek that made 2 people wince. It won't happen again. Victoria's expression shifted, something that might have been recognition flickering across her face. Not recognition of him as a person, but as a type, a category, something beneath concern. You're right, it won't. She stepped closer, and Marcus had to force himself not to back away. You know what your problem is? He said nothing. You think you're invisible. You think no one notices whether you do your job well or badly. You think because you push a mop, you don't matter. The perfume intensified as she invaded his space. Let me educate you. Everyone in this building exists to make this company run. The engineers, the accountants, the janitors. If you can't keep a cleaning cart out of my way, what else are you failing at? What corners are you cutting? What messes are you leaving for someone else to clean up? She paused, letting the silence stretch like a physical weight. People like you coast through life, expecting others to tolerate your mediocrity. Well, not here. Not in my building. Heat rose in Marcus's chest, the old anger, the engineer's pride, the man who used to solve million-dollar problems with equations and CAD programs. He pushed it down the way he'd learned to push everything down. Anger was a luxury for people with options. I apologize for the inconvenience, ma'am. Victoria's eyes narrowed. I don't want your apology. I want competence. She snapped her fingers at the security guard near the desk. Earl, I want this reported. I want to know who supervises the cleaning staff. Clearly, someone isn't doing their job. Yes, ma'am. Victoria turned on her heel. and her assistants scrambled to follow like pilot fish trailing a shark. The elevator doors opened, swallowed them, closed. The lobby remained silent for another 3 seconds before conversations resumed in hushed tones. Marcus finished wiping down the floor. He loaded his cart with mechanical precision. Years of practice, making his hands steady even as his mind replayed every word, every witness, every second of humiliation. The service corridor waited at the far end of the lobby, and he pushed toward it without looking at anyone. Behind him, someone whispered just loud enough for him to hear. Jesus, she didn't have to do that. Someone else responded with the resignation of experience. That's just Victoria. You get used to it. Marcus kept walking. The service corridor was mercifully empty. He leaned against the cold concrete wall, closed his eyes, breathed. 3 words echoed in his skull. People like you. That's all it took to reduce a man to nothing. 3 words from someone who'd never asked his name, never wondered about his story, never looked past the gray uniform and the mop bucket. He thought about walking out, quitting, telling Victoria Ashford exactly what he thought of her and her company and her marble floors. The fantasy played out in vivid detail, the shocked look on her face, the righteous anger in his voice, the satisfaction of finally being seen. Then he thought about Emma, 6 years old, waiting at daycare with her stuffed elephant, depending on him for food and shelter and medicine and love. Emma, who asked him every night if they had enough money for her heart medicine, who noticed when he skipped meals to stretch the grocery budget, who deserved so much better than a father who was barely holding on. Emma needed him to have a job. Emma needed him to swallow his pride and push his cart and be invisible. So that's what he would do. 10 years ago, Marcus Jensen wasn't invisible. 10 years ago, he walked into Lockheed Martin's Ohio facility wearing a charcoal suit and carrying a leather portfolio. He had an office on the 7th floor with a window that overlooked the assembly hangar. People called him Mr. Jensen and asked his opinion on technical problems that cost millions to solve. He designed guidance systems for satellites, the kind that orbited Earth collecting data on weather patterns and military installations and agricultural yields. 3 patents carried his name. When those satellites transmitted coordinates accurate to within centimeters, it was because Marcus had spent months perfecting the algorithms that made it possible. He'd met Rachel at an engineering conference in Atlanta. She worked for Boeing, specialized in materials science, had a laugh that could light up a hotel ballroom. They'd argued about composite stress tolerances over drinks, discovered a shared obsession with precision and problem solving and doing things right. Married at 28 in a small ceremony that her parents attended via video call because her father's heart condition made travel risky. Emma arrived 3 years later, 6 weeks premature, 3 pounds and change, with lungs that didn't quite work right and a heart that murmured when it should have been silent. The NICU doctors at Riverside Methodist spoke in careful tones about congenital defects and monitoring protocols and reasonable expectations. Rachel had held Marcus's hand so tight, her wedding ring left marks. Emma survived, thrived even, growing into a bright-eyed toddler who loved picture books and asked impossible questions about how clouds worked and why birds didn't fall down. The heart murmur persisted, benign, the doctor said, but requiring monthly checkups. Nothing serious, just expensive. Rachel got sick when Emma was 3. Ovarian cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it. The oncologist at Ohio State gave them 6 months. Rachel fought for 18, and every one of those months cost more than Marcus made in a year. The savings vanished first. The retirement account followed. They sold the house in Westerville, the 3-bedroom colonial with the oak tree in the backyard where Marcus had planned to build Emma a swing set. They sold Rachel's car, then Marcus's car, then bought a beater Honda that lasted 4 months before the transmission died and he couldn't afford to fix it. Marcus borrowed from friends until the friends stopped answering his calls. He maxed out credit cards at 22% interest. He took loans from companies that didn't ask questions about credit scores, just wanted collateral, and charged rates that should have been criminal. Rachel went through 3 rounds of chemotherapy, 2 experimental trials, a surgery that the insurance company denied and they paid for anyway by mortgaging their future. None of it worked. The cancer spread to her liver, her lungs, her bones. By month 16, she was in hospice care, and Marcus was sitting beside her bed holding her hand while machines beeped and medical debt crushed down on him like atmospheric pressure. She died on a Tuesday afternoon in September. The leaves outside her window were just starting to turn. She whispered that she was sorry for leaving, sorry for the debt, sorry for the burden. Marcus told her there was nothing to forgive. He meant it, but meaning it didn't pay the bills. After Rachel died, Marcus was left with $280,000 in debt and a 3-year-old daughter who kept asking when mommy was coming home. His engineering career was over. 18 months absent, references outdated, desperation showing in every interview. The recruiters took one look at his resume gap and moved on to candidates without complications. He needed work, any work, something that paid enough to keep Emma fed and let him pick her up from daycare by 3 o'clock. Ashford Industries was hiring janitors. The pay was $12 an hour. No benefits, no insurance, no questions about the gap in his employment history. Marcus took the job and told himself it was temporary. 3 years later, he was still pushing a mop. Marcus's shift ended at 2. He changed in the basement locker room, stuffing his uniform into a plastic grocery bag, pulling on faded jeans and an Ohio State sweatshirt that had been a graduation gift from his parents. The sweatshirt was 15 years old, the logo cracked and peeling, but it still fit and reminded him of a time when his future meant something. The bus to Emma's daycare took 45 minutes. Marcus stared out the window at Columbus sliding past, strip malls and gas stations and apartment complexes with optimistic names like Riverside Gardens and Oakmont Estates. He tried not to think, tried not to replay Victoria Ashford's words, tried not to calculate how many more months he could afford rent if he picked up extra shifts at the grocery store on weekends. People like you. The phrase wormed into his thoughts anyway. Emma was waiting by the window when Marcus walked up. The moment she saw him, her whole face transformed. Pure joy, uncomplicated love, the kind of expression that made everything else worth enduring. She ran to him, threw her arms around his legs, pressed her face against his thigh. "Daddy!" Marcus knelt and hugged her properly, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo the daycare used and the faint tang of playground mulch. "Hey, sweetheart, how was your day?" "Good. Miss Patterson said I drew the best rainbow, and Tommy shared his crackers with me, and we learned a song about a caterpillar. Want me to sing it? Maybe on the bus. We've got to hurry, remember?" Doctor's appointment. Emma's face fell. She didn't like the appointments, the stethoscopes and blood pressure cuffs and serious adult faces, but she never complained. "Will they stick me again?" "Maybe, but you'll be brave, right?" Emma straightened her shoulders with exaggerated seriousness. "Right. Mommy said brave people still get scared. They just do the thing anyway." Marcus's throat tightened. "That's exactly right, baby." St. Vincent's Hospital loomed on the west side of downtown, a sprawling complex of buildings connected by covered walkways and colored lines painted on the floors. The pediatric clinic waiting room was chaos incarnate. Crying babies, exhausted parents, kids running between chairs while their mothers scrolled through phones with the glazed expression of people who'd been waiting too long. Marcus signed Emma in and found 2 seats wedged between a mother with twins and an elderly man who was snoring. He pulled out Where the Wild Things Are and read to Emma in a low voice, doing all the character voices the way Rachel used to. Emma pressed against his side, her small hand gripping his sleeve, her eyes fixed on the illustrations. This was his favorite part of every day. Not the reading exactly, but the closeness, the trust, the way Emma looked at him like he was the strongest person in the world. He wasn't. He knew he wasn't. But for her, he would try. Emma Carter. The nurse appeared at 3:15. Marcus lifted Emma onto his hip and followed the nurse down the corridor toward the pediatric cardiology wing. They passed examination rooms and supply closets and bulletin boards covered with crayon drawings of hearts in anatomically improbable configurations. The nurse led them to room 7. Dr. Patel arrived 5 minutes but 5 minutes later, stethoscope already looped around her neck, tablet in hand displaying Emma's chart. "How's my favorite patient?" Emma giggled and hid her face against Marcus's shoulder. "She's been great. No symptoms, no complaints." Dr. Patel nodded and began the examination. Blood pressure first, then pulse, then the stethoscope, pressed against Emma's chest in 4 different locations. Emma stayed still the way she'd learned to stay still, counting silently in her head the way Marcus had taught her. Heartbeat sounds good, murmurs unchanged, blood pressure normal. Dr. Patel made notes on her tablet. She's doing beautifully, Mr. Jensen, no concerns. We'll see her next month. Marcus exhaled without realizing he'd been holding his breath. Thank you, doctor. Patel looked up from her tablet, her expression softening. Thank you for being so consistent with her appointments. I know it's not easy with your schedule. Marcus managed a smile. She's worth it. Dr. Patel's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. You're a good father, Mr. Jensen. The words hit harder than they should have. After the morning, after Victoria's public destruction of his dignity, the simple acknowledgement that he was doing something right meant everything. Thank you. Really. They were walking back through the corridors when Marcus heard the scream, high-pitched, panicked, then the crash of metal on linoleum. Marcus grabbed Emma's hand and moved faster. He rounded the corner and stopped. A wheelchair lay overturned. Medical equipment scattered everywhere, and on the floor, inches from his feet, was a little girl. The same girl from earlier, the one on the gurney. She was seizing. Her body jerked in violent spasms. Her hospital gown twisted around her limbs. Her face had gone gray. Blood trickled from where she'd torn out her IV. A nurse knelt beside her, screaming for help. She pulled out her IV, tried to run. I couldn't catch her. Marcus didn't think. 4 years in the Army before college, trained as a combat medic, and the training took over before conscious thought could interfere. He set Emma against the wall. Stay there, don't move. He dropped to his knees beside the girl, turned her on her side, pulled off his jacket and wadded it under her head, held her steady while the convulsions racked her small frame. Get a doctor. Now, the nurse ran. Marcus counted. 10 seconds, 15, 20. The girl's back arched. Her hands clawed at the floor. A sound escaped her throat, something between a moan and a sob. 30 seconds. 35. You're okay. I've got you. You're safe. 40 seconds. 43. Then finally the convulsions eased. Her body relaxed. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes opened. Bright blue, the kind of blue that belonged on postcards of tropical water. Now filled with absolute terror, her hand found Marcus's wrist and gripped it with surprising strength. Please, the word was barely a whisper. Please don't let me die. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. My mommy isn't here. Please, I don't want to die. He thought of Emma watching from against the wall. He thought of Rachel dying in a hospital bed, whispering apologies. He thought of all the promises he'd made and couldn't keep. But this girl was looking at him, begging him. You're not going to die. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Promise, I promise. The medical team arrived, 2 doctors, 3 nurses, a gurney that appeared from nowhere. They lifted her with practiced efficiency, attached monitors, called out readings in medical shorthand that Marcus half remembered from his Army days. BP 70/40 and dropping, heart rate 140. Get her to trauma. Marcus stepped back. His hands were shaking. His jacket lay on the floor, spotted with blood. Emma ran him, wrapped her arms around his legs. You saved her, Daddy. Marcus picked her up, held her close, tried to breathe. The doctors are going to help her now. But you helped first. You were brave. Brave. He didn't feel brave. He felt hollowed out, scraped raw, like every emotion he'd been holding at bay for 3 years had suddenly broken through whatever dam he'd built to contain them. But if Emma saw bravery, that was enough. Somewhere behind him, a woman's voice cut through the controlled chaos of the hospital corridor, high, frantic, demanding to know where her daughter was. Marcus didn't turn around. He didn't see Victoria Ashford run past, mascara streaking her face in dark rivulets. He didn't see her collapse against the trauma room door, beating her fists against the wood while security guards tried to calm her down. He only knew that somewhere, a mother was terrified, and a little girl was fighting for her life. The hospital intercom crackled to life. Code red, O-negative blood needed immediately. Pediatric emergency, all compatible staff report to donation center. Marcus stopped walking. The words echoed in his head, reorganizing themselves from sounds into meaning. O-negative, the rarest blood type. His blood type. The blood type that had made him valuable to the army, that Rachel had shared, that appeared on his dog tags and his medical records and every blood donation card he'd ever carried. Emma tugged his sleeve. Daddy, that's your special blood, the kind Mommy had. Marcus looked at his daughter. He thought of the little girl who'd gripped his wrist, who'd begged him not to let her die. The blue eyes filled with terror. The small hand holding on like he was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Yeah, baby, it is. He took Emma's hand. We need to go help someone. The donation center occupied the ground floor, tucked between the cafeteria and the administrative offices. Marcus had passed it 100 times during Emma's appointments, but had never been inside. Today, the hallway outside was packed. Nurses, doctors, hospital staffs, all crowding around the intake desk. Voices overlapped, creating a wall of sound that pulsed with barely contained panic. I'm a positive. Can that work? We need O negative specifically. I'm sorry. What about O positive? That's close, right? It's not compatible. I'm sorry. Next, please. Marcus pushed through the crowd, Emma's hand tight in his. A woman in scrubs stood behind the desk, coordinator badge dangling from a lanyard around her neck. Her face was drawn with exhaustion and something worse, the look of someone watching time run out on a life she couldn't save. Excuse me. The coordinator didn't look up. Blood type, O negative. Her head snapped up. Her eyes locked onto Marcus's face with an intensity that made him take a step back. You're sure? I'm sure. She grabbed his arm. Come with me, now. Marcus started to protest. Wait, my daughter, bring her. We don't have time. The coordinator pulled Marcus through the crowd, past the intake desk, into a small examination room in the back. She pointed at a chair. Sit. I need to verify your blood type. 5 minutes. Marcus sat. Emma climbed into the chair beside him, her stuffed elephant clutched to her chest, watching everything with solemn attention. What's happening? The coordinator was already drawing blood from Marcus's arm, her movements precise despite the tremor in her hands. The girl, she's dying, 7 years old, internal hemorrhage. She's lost too much blood and we're completely out of O negative. Every hospital in the city is running low. The regional blood center can get us units, but not for 4 hours. Marcus felt his stomach drop. She doesn't have 4 hours. The coordinator met his eyes. No, she doesn't. Emma tugged at Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, is this about the girl from before? The one you helped? Marcus looked at his daughter. Her eyes were wide, but not frightened. She trusted him completely. Whatever he decided, she would accept. Yeah, baby, it's about her. Emma nodded with the seriousness of a judge rendering verdict. Then you have to help her again. The coordinator ran the blood through the testing machine. Marcus watched the seconds tick by on the wall clock, each one feeling like a small death, each one bringing that little girl closer to whatever waited on the other side of consciousness. Emma sat quietly, swinging her legs, humming a song from daycare. The elephant's black button eyes stared at Marcus with what felt like accusation. Finally, the coordinator looked up. Her expression had changed. The panic was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, something that looked almost like awe. Mr. Jensen, yeah? Your blood isn't just O negative. You have a rare antigen combination that makes your blood exceptionally compatible. It's found in maybe 1 in 10,000 people. Marcus didn't know what to say. So I can help. You can save her life. The coordinator paused, and Marcus recognized the shift in her posture, the preparation for delivering bad news. But I need to be honest with you. The amount of blood this child needs, it's significant, more than a standard donation. We're talking about 2 units, maybe more. That's pushing the limits of what's safe for a single donor. Marcus thought about work tomorrow, the shift he was supposed to cover, the weekend job at the grocery store, stocking shelves for $11 an hour, the rent due next week. What are the risks? Dizziness, fatigue, possibly fainting. You'll need to rest for several days afterward. Eat iron-rich foods. Monitor yourself for complications. Then he thought about the little girl, the blue eyes, the desperate plea. Please don't let me die. I'll do it. Mr. Jensen, I need you to understand. I understand. I'll do it. The coordinator studied his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her. Okay, let me get you set up. The donation room was small and clinical. Two reclining chairs, monitoring equipment, a window that looked out onto the parking lot. Marcus settled into the chair on the left. A nurse appeared and began prepping his arm, swabbing the inside of his elbow with alcohol, tapping the vein to make it stand out beneath the skin. Emma climbed into the chair beside him, her legs dangling over the edge. "Does it hurt, Daddy?" "Just a little pinch. Nothing bad. You're being brave." "I'm trying." The nurse inserted the needle. Marcus felt the familiar pressure, the strange sensation of blood leaving his body through a tube he could see but barely feel. He watched the crimson flow into the collection bag and thought about where it would go, into a little girl's veins, keeping her alive, giving her a chance. He hoped it would be enough. "Mr. Jensen," the nurse's voice was gentle. "The coordinator told me about your situation. Your daughter can stay here with you, but if you'd like, we have a children's area down the hall. Volunteers, toys, books." Marcus looked at Emma. "What do you think, sweetheart? Want to go play for a little while?" Emma shook her head firmly. "I want to stay with you." "You sure? This might take a while, and Daddy's going to be pretty boring just lying here." "I don't care. I want to stay." Marcus felt his heart swell until it threatened to crack his ribs. "Okay, baby, you can stay." The nurse smiled. "I'll bring some juice and crackers for both of you." She left. Marcus and Emma sat in comfortable silence, watching the blood flow through the tube, listening to the soft beeping of the monitoring equipment. Outside, afternoon sunlight slanted through the window, painting golden rectangles on the floor. After a few minutes, Emma spoke. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "The girl from before, the one who was scared. Is your blood going to make her not scared anymore?" Marcus considered the question. "I hope so, sweetheart. When people are sick, sometimes they need blood from other people to help them get better. That's what I'm giving her." Emma processed this. "So part of you will be inside her?" "In a way, yeah." Emma nodded, satisfied. "That's good, because you're the best daddy. So she'll have some of the best daddy inside her, and that will help her be strong." Marcus blinked hard. His throat was tight. That's a nice way to think about it, baby. Mommy told me that." Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, the way it always was when she mentioned Rachel. "She said when people share parts of themselves with other people, it makes everyone stronger. She said that's what love is." Marcus couldn't speak. He just reached out and took Emma's hand, holding it tight while his blood flowed through the tube into the bag that would save a stranger's daughter. The donation took 45 minutes. By the end, Marcus felt like someone had replaced his skeleton with wet cardboard. The room swayed when he moved his head too fast. His limbs felt disconnected from his brain, responding to commands a half-second too late. The nurse had him drink 2 cups of orange juice and eat a package of crackers that tasted like salted cardboard. The weakness persisted, a deep, bone-level exhaustion that made simple movements feel like solving differential equations. "You need to take it easy. No heavy lifting for at least 24 hours. No driving. Plenty of fluids and rest." Marcus nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "Is there someone who can pick you up? You really shouldn't be taking public transit in your condition." Marcus thought about the bus ride home. 45 minutes, 2 transfers, Emma on his lap because the buses were always crowded this time of day. "I'll be fine." The nurse looked skeptical but didn't argue. "At least wait in the lobby for a while. Make sure you're stable before you leave." "Okay." Marcus stood slowly, gripping the arm of the chair for support. The room tilted, then steadied. Emma took his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his with fierce protectiveness. "I'll help you, Daddy." They made their way out of the donation room, through the hallway, toward the main lobby. Marcus's legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Heavy, unreliable, disconnected from his brain's commands. Each step required conscious thought, deliberate effort. He was halfway down the corridor when he heard the voice. "Please, someone, please. They said someone might be able to help." A woman's voice, high and frantic, ragged with the kind of desperation that came from watching the world collapse in real time. Marcus kept walking. The lobby was just ahead. A few more steps and he could sit down. Rest. Wait for the dizziness to pass. "My daughter, she's dying. They said there's a donor. Please." Something in the voice made Marcus slow down. Something familiar. Something that tugged at the edge of memory like a song he had heard years ago and couldn't quite place. He reached the lobby and stopped. The donation center doors were directly ahead, and standing in front of them, her back to Marcus, was a woman in an expensive suit. Her blonde hair had come loose from its severe bun. Her shoulders were shaking. Her voice was barely recognizable, stripped of authority, of contempt, of ice-cold precision. But Marcus recognized it anyway. The woman turned around. Victoria Ashford. Her face was streaked with mascara. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hands were trembling visibly. She looked like a woman who had been broken into pieces and hastily reassembled by someone who'd lost the instruction manual. For a moment, she didn't see him. She was scanning the lobby, searching for something, someone who could save her daughter's life. Her eyes moved past security guards, past waiting families, past the coffee station and the information desk. Then her eyes found his face. Marcus watched the recognition dawn, watched her expression cycle through confusion, disbelief, shock. Watched her mouth open and close and open again with no sound emerging. Mrs. Ashford. The coordinator appeared beside Marcus, oblivious to the tension crackling between them like a live wire. Good news. We found a donor. A perfect match, actually. Better than perfect. He has a rare antigen combination that makes his blood exceptionally compatible. Victoria's eyes hadn't left Marcus's face. Who? The coordinator gestured at Marcus like she was presenting a prize on a game show. Mr. Jensen here. He just finished donating 2 units. Your daughter is receiving the transfusion right now. Her vitals are already stabilizing. Victoria stared at Marcus. Marcus stared back. Neither of them spoke. The lobby continued around them, people walking, phones ringing, the PA system calling for Dr. Somebody to report to somewhere, but in the bubble between them, the world had gone silent. Emma tugged at Marcus's hand. Daddy, who's that lady? The question broke the spell. Victoria's gaze dropped to Emma, to the small girl with the stuffed elephant, the girl who was looking up at her with innocent curiosity and no comprehension of the history compressed into this moment. She's... Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. She's the mother of the girl I helped. Emma's face brightened. Oh, your daughter is going to be okay, ma'am. My daddy gave her his blood. He's the bravest person in the whole world. Victoria made a sound, something between a laugh and a sob. Her hand came up to cover her mouth. She tried again. I don't... The coordinator frowned, sensing something wrong. Mrs. Ashford, are you all right? Victoria didn't answer. She was staring at Marcus with an expression he couldn't read. Shock, disbelief, guilt, gratitude, all of them tangled together in a knot that seemed to be choking her. How? She finally managed to force the word out. How are you here? How did you... Marcus kept his voice quiet. Even. My daughter had an appointment. I heard the announcement. I came to help, but you... Victoria stopped, swallowed hard. You know who I am. Yes, you know what I said to you this morning. Yes, and you still... Her voice broke. You still gave your blood for my daughter? The lobby had gone silent. People were watching now, sensing drama, phones probably recording. The whole scene about to become tomorrow's gossip. Marcus looked at this woman, this powerful, wealthy, ruthless woman, and saw something he hadn't expected to see. He saw a mother, just a mother, terrified and desperate and broken by the possibility of losing her child. No different from any other mother. No different from Rachel, who had fought so hard to stay alive for Emma. Your daughter was scared. She was alone. She needed help. Victoria's face crumpled. But Marcus cut her off. His voice was still quiet, but it carried weight now. The weight of every sleepless night, every humiliation swallowed, every choice made for Emma's sake. What you said to me this morning has nothing to do with her. She's a child. She's innocent. She doesn't deserve to die because her mother was cruel. Victoria flinched like he'd slapped her. I'm not a saint, Mrs. Ashford. I'm not doing this to make you feel guilty. He sank into a chair near the window and pulled Emma onto his lap. She curled against his chest, her elephant tucked under her arm, her breathing already slowing towards sleep. Outside, the afternoon sun painted the parking lot in shades of gold and amber. Cars came and went. People walked to their vehicles, climbed in, drove away to lives Marcus would never know. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about the woman he just walked away from. It didn't work. Victoria Ashford's face kept swimming before his eyes. Not the cold, contemptuous face from this morning, the broken one, the one with tears cutting through the mascara, the one that had looked at him like he was a ghost or a miracle or something she couldn't quite comprehend. You know what I said to you this morning, and you still gave your blood? Yes, he had. And he would do it again without hesitation, because that little girl's life was worth more than his wounded pride. But that didn't mean the wound had healed. Marcus thought about the morning, the lobby, the stairs, the whispered comments after Victoria had walked away. Poor guy. She didn't have to do that. No, she didn't. But she did it anyway because she could. Because power meant never having to see the humanity in people beneath you. Because people like Marcus were invisible. Convenient targets for frustration, punching bags who couldn't punch back. He wondered if Victoria Ashford had ever been humiliated in her life. If she had ever stood in front of a crowd of people and felt the weight of their pity. If she had ever gone home at night and replayed someone's words in her head, wondering if they were right, wondering if she really was as worthless as they made her feel. Probably not. People like Victoria Ashford didn't get humiliated. They did the humiliating. Until today. Marcus opened his eyes. Emma slept against his chest, her breathing soft and regular, her hand still clutching his shirt. Through the window, the sun continued its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in colors that would have been beautiful if Marcus had any energy left to appreciate them. Somewhere in this hospital, a little girl was receiving his blood. Somewhere, doctors were monitoring vitals and adjusting drips and doing whatever medical magic they did to keep people alive. Somewhere, Victoria Ashford was probably sitting by her daughter's bedside, holding a small hand, thanking God or the universe or random chance for a second chance she didn't deserve. Marcus closed his eyes again. He didn't know what would happen next. Didn't know if Victoria would try to find him, thank him, apologize. Didn't know if he'd still have a job tomorrow or if Earl, the security guard, had already filed that report and set wheels in motion that would end with Marcus's employee ID deactivated and his locker cleaned out. Didn't know if any of this mattered. But right now, in this moment, his daughter was safe. A little girl was alive because of him. And somewhere in the city, a mother was sitting by her child's hospital bed, holding her hand, getting a second chance. That was enough. It had to be enough. Marcus didn't go to work Friday morning. His body wouldn't let him. The alarm screamed at 4:30, and he reached out to silence it, but his arm weighed 1,000 pounds. The room spun when he opened his eyes. His head pounded like someone was driving railroad spikes through his skull. He called in sick for the first time in 3 years. The voice on the other end belonged to his supervisor, a man named Ed who'd worked at Ashford Industries longer than Marcus had been alive. Carter? You okay? Blood donation yesterday took more out of me than I expected. A pause, right. I heard about that. Another pause, longer this time. Everyone's heard about that. Marcus closed his eyes. Of course they had. Take the day. Take 2 if you need them. Ed's voice softened in a way Marcus had never heard before. And Carter? What you did, that was something. I don't know if I could have done it. Not after what she said to you. Marcus didn't respond. He just hung up and let the phone drop onto the couch beside him. Emma appeared in the doorway of the bedroom, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed elephant dangling from one hand. Daddy, you're still here. Marcus pulled himself into a sitting position, fighting the wave of nausea that accompanied the movement. I'm taking a day off, sweetheart. Daddy's tired. Emma crossed the room and climbed onto the couch beside him. She pressed her small hand against his forehead, the way he always did when she was sick. You're not hot, but you look like a ghost. Marcus managed a weak smile. Thanks, baby. That's very comforting. I'll take care of you. Emma's face took on the seriousness of a surgeon accepting a critical case. I'll make you toast and bring you juice and read you stories. That's what you do when I'm sick. Marcus pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. That sounds perfect. Emma made toast. It came out burned on one side, cold on the other. The butter applied in uneven clumps that refused to melt. Marcus ate every bite and told her it was delicious. She poured him juice and spilled half of it on the counter, then got frustrated trying to clean it up. Why is grown-up stuff so hard? The question came out with genuine distress, and Marcus recognized his daughter in that moment. Not the perfect angel who never complained, but a 6-year-old trying to do things beyond her ability and getting upset when they didn't work. It just takes practice, sweetheart. You're doing great. Emma's face brightened. Mommy said brave people still get scared. They just do the thing anyway. She recovered quickly, like kids do, and spent the rest of the morning reading to Marcus from her picture books. She did all the voices, making him laugh, despite the exhaustion pressing down on him like atmospheric pressure. By afternoon, Emma curled against his side and they watched cartoons on the small television. Her hand found his and held tight. Daddy? Yeah, baby, the lady from the hospital. The one whose daughter you saved. Was she the same lady who was mean to you? Marcus had hoped Emma hadn't understood what happened in that lobby. He should have known better. Emma noticed everything. Yeah, sweetheart, she was. Why was she mean to you? Marcus thought about how to explain cruelty to someone who'd never deliberately hurt another person in her life. I don't know, baby. Sometimes people are mean because they're scared or stressed or unhappy inside. Emma considered this with the gravity of a philosopher contemplating existence. Mommy said hurt people hurt people. Rachel's words coming back through their daughter's voice. She did say that. So maybe that lady was hurt inside, and that's why she said mean things. Marcus looked at Emma, 6 years old, carrying her mother's wisdom in a heart too small to contain it all. Maybe, baby, maybe. Across the city, Victoria Ashford hadn't slept in 36 hours. She sat in a chair beside Lily's hospital bed, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall with mechanical regularity. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. The IV dripped its measured dose. The doctors had said the surgery was successful, the transfusion worked, full recovery expected. But Victoria couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything except replay Marcus Jensen's words in her head until they wore grooves in her consciousness. I have patents with my name on them. Satellites orbiting Earth use guidance systems I designed. That's who I was when you called me invisible. Victoria had spent her entire career learning to read people, to understand their motivations, their weaknesses, their fears. She prided herself on seeing through facades, on knowing what people really wanted. But she'd looked at Marcus Jensen and seen nothing. Just a janitor, just an obstacle, just another faceless worker in the machine of her company. She'd been so wrong. Mrs. Ashford? A nurse appeared in the doorway, young and efficient, clipboard in hand. Dr. Chen wanted me to let you know that Lily's latest vitals look excellent. She should be able to go home in a few days. Victoria managed a nod. Thank you. The nurse hesitated. Is there anything I can get you? Coffee? Something to eat? No, thank you. The nurse left. Victoria turned back to Lily, watching the small chest rise and fall. She thought about what Marcus had said, about his daughter with a heart condition, about working 2 jobs and still not being able to afford health insurance, about lying awake at night worrying what would happen if Emma got worse. Ashford Industries employed over 4,000 people. How many of them were like Marcus Jensen? How many were struggling, suffering, drowning in medical bills and debt? How many came to work every day, did their jobs, and went home to live as Victoria had never bothered to imagine? She didn't know. She had never asked. People like you. Her own words echoed back at her, taking on new and terrible meaning. You think you're invisible. He wasn't invisible. He had never been invisible. She had just chosen not to see him. That was worse. That was so much worse. Victoria put her head in her hands and wept. Lily woke at dawn, her eyes opened slowly, focusing on the ceiling tiles, then moving to find her mother's face. Mommy? Victoria jerked upright, nearly knocking over the chair. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Where's the man? Lily's voice was weak but clear. The one who helped me. Victoria's throat tightened. He went home, sweetheart. He has a daughter of his own to take care of. Is he coming back? Victoria didn't know how to answer that. I don't know, baby. Maybe. I want to thank him. He promised he wouldn't let me die, and he didn't. Victoria felt tears sliding down her face again. I know, sweetheart. I want to thank him too. Lily reached out and took her mother's hand. Her grip was weak but warm. Mommy, why are you crying? Victoria wiped her eyes with her free hand. I'm just happy you're okay, baby. That's all. But it wasn't all. It wasn't even close to all. And Victoria knew that no matter how many tears she cried, she couldn't wash away what she'd done. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 Friday morning. Victoria had known it was coming. She'd abandoned a critical investor presentation. She'd left Robert Chen, the CFO, to handle questions he wasn't prepared to answer. She'd put her personal life ahead of company interests. In the world of corporate leadership, that was unforgivable. She arrived at Ashford Industries headquarters at 8:45, 2 nights in the hospital with Lily. No sleep. Her suit was wrinkled. Her hair was hastily pinned back. She looked nothing like the polished, intimidating CEO who usually commanded the boardroom. She didn't care. The boardroom was full when she entered. 8 faces arranged around the mahogany table that had cost more than most people made in a year. Harold Weston sat at the head, chairman of the board, 73 years old, face carved from granite and patience worn to nothing. Olivia, sit down, Victoria sat. I assume you know why we've called this meeting. I do. Harold leaned forward, fingers steepled. Your departure Wednesday caused significant concern among our institutional investors. Robert did his best to reassure them, but questions were raised about your commitment to this company, about your judgment, about your priorities. Victoria listened without responding. She'd prepared for this, had rehearsed her explanation, marshaled her arguments, planned her defense. Hours of mental preparation while sitting beside Lily's bed, constructing the perfect justification for why a CEO could abandon a board meeting to rush to a dying child. But sitting here now, looking at these faces, these people who saw her only as a function of quarterly earnings, she felt something shift inside her. My daughter almost died. The words came out quiet, flat, a statement of fact that needed no embellishment. Harold nodded with the impatience of someone who'd heard excuses before. We understand that, Victoria, and we're glad she's recovering. But this company employs over 4,000 people. Their livelihoods depend on stable leadership, on investors who trust us to put the business first. Victoria felt the old reflexes kicking in, the CEO mask, the armor she'd worn for 15 years, deflecting criticism, projecting strength, never showing weakness. Then she thought about Marcus Jensen's face, the quiet dignity in his refusal to be diminished. The way he'd looked at her in that hospital lobby, not with hatred or anger, but with understanding that somehow cut deeper than either. I know. Harold's expression suggested he was waiting for more. The justification, the promise that it wouldn't happen again. The reassurance that Victoria Ashford was still the ruthless leader who'd built Ashford Industries into a $4 billion company. So what do you have to say for yourself? Victoria looked around the table, saw impatience on Gerald's face, disappointment on Martha's, barely concealed contempt on Richard's. These were people who prided themselves on never letting personal matters interfere with business. People who had missed births and funerals and anniversaries for the sake of the company. People who measured worth in profit margins and stock prices. People exactly like her. I have spent 15 years proving my commitment to this company. Her voice was still quiet, but something had changed in it. A hardness, a certainty. I've sacrificed birthdays and recitals and school plays. I've missed first steps and first words and first days of school. I've given this company everything, and I told myself it was worth it because I was building something important. She paused. Wednesday afternoon, a janitor saved my daughter's life. Harold frowned, confusion breaking through the granite. I'm not sure what that has to do with a janitor I had humiliated that very morning, a man I had called invisible. The boardroom went silent. His name is Marcus Jensen. He has a degree in mechanical engineering. He has patents with his name on them. He used to design guidance systems for satellites. But when his wife got sick, when the medical bills consumed everything he had, he took the only job he could find, a janitor position at this company. He did it because he has a 6-year-old daughter who depends on him, a daughter with a heart condition who needs regular medical care that he can't afford because we don't offer health insurance to our cleaning staff. Victoria stood, her hands gripped the edge of the table. This man gave 2 pints of his blood to save my daughter. He did it knowing who I was, knowing what I'd said to him, knowing that I'd humiliated him in front of 50 of our employees. She looked at each board member in turn. Do you want to know why he did it? No one answered. He said, "She's a child. She was scared. She needed help." Victoria's voice cracked slightly, but she didn't stop. That's it. No conditions, no demands, no strategic calculations, just basic human decency, the kind I had completely forgotten existed. Harold shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Victoria, I'm not finished." The sharpness in her voice cut through whatever he'd been about to say. "This company needs to change. We need health insurance for every employee, regardless of position. Flexible scheduling for parents. Emergency assistance programs for people dealing with medical crises. A company that treats its workers with dignity, not as productivity units to be optimized and discarded." Harold's face reddened. "That would cost millions. I know what it would cost. I also know what it takes when we don't do it. We lose people like Marcus Jensen. Brilliant, talented, dedicated people who could be contributing so much more if we just gave them a chance." She straightened, gathering her papers. "You can support me in this, or you can replace me. But I'm done pretending that being powerful means being cruel. I'm done treating people like they're invisible because they're not important enough to matter. I'm done running a company that chews people up and spits them out without ever seeing them as human beings." Victoria walked toward the door. Behind her, Harold's voice carried the weight of authority he'd wielded for 40 years. "Victoria, if you walk out that door—" She stopped, turned. "Then you'll have my resignation on your desk by end of business today." Their eyes met. Victoria saw calculation in Harold's face. The weighing of options, the assessment of risk, the cold mathematics of corporate power. She didn't wait for his answer. The door closed behind her with a finality that felt like freedom. Victoria made it to her office before her hands started shaking. She collapsed into her chair, adrenaline draining away and leaving nothing but exhaustion in its wake. Her phone was already lighting up. Texts from board members, emails from executives, the machinery of corporate politics grinding into motion. She ignored all of it. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Columbus spread out beneath her like a circuit board. Somewhere down there, Marcus Jensen was recovering from giving blood to save a stranger's child. Somewhere, Emma Jensen was reading to her father, being brave, carrying wisdom she'd inherited from a mother who died too young. Somewhere, Victoria's daughter was lying in a hospital bed, alive because a man she'd called invisible had chosen to be better than she deserved. Her phone buzzed. A text from Harold. "Board vote 5-3 in your favor. Present your initiative plan." Monday. Victoria stared at the message for a long moment. 5-3, not unanimous. Richard, Gerald, and Martha had voted against her. But she'd won. She had 5 days to figure out what came next. 5 days to become someone her daughter could be proud of. 5 days to prove that people could change, even when they didn't deserve the chance. She picked up her phone and opened a new message to her assistant. "I need everything we have on employee benefits programs, national benchmarks, competitor analysis, and I need contact information for Marcus Jensen." The response came back within seconds. "On it. Anything else?" Victoria thought about the look on Marcus's face when he'd walked away from her in that hospital lobby. The quiet dignity, the refusal to accept her gratitude or her guilt. "Yes, I need to know what it takes to make someone believe you've changed when you've given them every reason not to." Her assistant didn't respond to that. Some questions didn't have easy answers. Marcus returned to work Monday morning. The alarm went off at 4:30, and this time his body cooperated. The weakness had faded to a general fatigue, manageable with coffee and willpower. He dressed in the gray uniform, loaded his cart in the basement supply room, and started his route on the executive floors. Everything felt different. The other janitors greeted him with something that looked like respect. A few nodded. One, an older man named James who worked the night shift, stopped him near the third-floor break room. "Heard what you did, Carter. That was something else." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "I just helped someone who needed help." "Yeah, well, not everyone would have helped that particular someone. Not after what she did to you." James's expression suggested he'd been present Thursday morning. Witnessed the lobby incident, maybe even recorded it on his phone like half the building apparently had. What was I supposed to do? Let a little girl die? James had no answer for that. He just clapped Marcus on the shoulder and walked away, leaving Marcus alone with his cart and the weight of expectations he hadn't asked for. At 11, his supervisor found him cleaning the executive washroom on the 23rd floor. Carter, Mrs. Ashford's office. Now, Marcus's stomach dropped. He'd been waiting for this since Friday. The termination meeting, the security escort, the final paycheck, and the long walk to the bus stop with his belongings in a box. Ed's face revealed nothing. What? She wants to see you. Personally. Marcus set down his cleaning supplies and tried to calm the hammering of his heart. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. Every floor dinged past was another second to imagine what came next. Apology? Payoff? Some corporate lawyer explaining why his blood donation constituted a conflict of interest? The doors opened onto the executive suite. Victoria's assistant waited, a young woman in a tailored suit who radiated efficiency. Mr. Jensen, please follow me. She led him down a corridor lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Marcus would earn in a decade. Double doors at the end opened into an office that took his breath away despite himself. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Columbus. A desk the size of a small car dominated one end. Behind it sat Victoria Ashford. She stood when Marcus entered. The gesture surprised him, a show of respect he hadn't expected. But her posture remained defensive, shoulders squared like she was preparing for battle. Mr. Jensen, thank you for coming. Marcus stayed near the door. Didn't sit, didn't speak. Victoria's jaw tightened briefly, a flash of the old anger, the CEO reflex to command rather than request. But she caught herself, took a breath. I owe you an apology. Marcus kept his voice level. Yes, you do. She flinched. For a moment, Marcus saw it clearly. The woman who wasn't used to being challenged, who'd built an empire on making others flinch instead. The impulse to strike back flickered across her face. Then it died. What I said to you Thursday morning was wrong. It was cruel. It was inexcusable. Marcus waited. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I treated you like you were less than human. She stopped, started again. I called you invisible. The word hung between them like smoke. Do you know what I was thinking when you said those things? Victoria shook her head. I was thinking about my daughter. I was thinking about the fact that I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Ohio State. I was thinking about the aerospace patents that have my name on them. I was thinking about the satellites orbiting Earth right now that use guidance systems I designed. Victoria's face had gone pale. I was thinking about my wife who died 3 years ago from ovarian cancer. I was thinking about the medical bills that consumed everything we had, our savings, our house, our future. I was thinking about the 18 months I spent trying to save her, and the moment when I realized that nothing I did would be enough. Marcus's voice cracked. He steadied it. I was thinking about taking this job, this janitor job at your company, because it was the only thing I could find that would let me pick up my daughter from daycare on time. I was thinking about pushing a mop in a building full of engineers who discussed designs I could improve in my sleep. He stepped closer to Victoria's desk. That's who I was when you called me invisible. A widower, a father, a man who gave up everything to try to save the person he loved and lost her anyway, and picked up the pieces because his daughter needed him to keep going. Victoria was crying now, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. I didn't know. The words came out as a whisper. No, you didn't. Because you didn't bother to ask. You didn't bother to see me as a person. I was just a janitor, just an obstacle, just something in your way. Marcus paused. My daughter thinks I'm a hero. She thinks I'm the bravest person in the world. She doesn't know that most days I feel like I'm barely holding on. She doesn't know that I work 2 jobs and still can't afford health insurance. That I lie awake at night worrying about what will happen if her heart condition gets worse. That sometimes I'm so tired I want to give up. His voice dropped lower. But I don't give up. Because she needs me. Because she's the only thing I have left. Because her mother made me promise to take care of her, and I don't break my promises. Victoria sank into her chair. Her face was a ruin of makeup and tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know it's not enough. I know it doesn't undo what I said. But I don't know what else to say. Marcus studied her for a long moment. He thought about Rachel, who'd always believed in second chances, who'd seen good in people even when they didn't deserve it, who taught Emma that hurt people, and sometimes the cruelest ones were just the most scared. The car you arranged Thursday. That's a good start. Victoria looked up, hope flickering in her eyes like a candle in wind. Is there anything else I can do? Anything at all. Marcus considered lying, considered saying no, walking out, keeping his dignity intact and his life separate from this woman who tried to destroy him with words. Then he thought about Emma, about Frank Rodriguez with his diabetes, about every person in this building who came to work in pain, in fear, in desperation, and got nothing back except a paycheck too small to live on. Go be with your daughter. That's what she needs right now. That's what you both need. Victoria nodded slowly. She stood, smoothing her wrinkled blouse in a gesture that might have been an attempt at composure. Mr. Jensen, yep. Marcus, she blinked. What? My name is Marcus. If you're going to apologize, you should use it. Something shifted in the air between them. Not friendship, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Recognition that they were both human beings standing in a room, carrying weight that nobody else could see. Marcus, thank you for saving her life, for being, she searched for the right word, for being better than I deserve. Marcus looked at this powerful, wealthy woman and saw past the armor to the person underneath. Still flawed, still learning, still capable of causing harm, but also capable of change. Your daughter is waiting. Victoria turned and walked toward the door, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood. At the threshold, she stopped. I really am sorry for who I was. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Not forgiveness, that would take time if it came at all, but something close to understanding. I know. And someday I think I might be able to forgive you. 3 weeks passed, Marcus threw himself into work with an intensity that surprised even him. Not the janitor work that continued on autopilot, muscle memory, guiding mop, and cart through familiar routes. But something else. Something that started with a phone call from Victoria's assistant Tuesday afternoon. Mrs. Ashford would like to meet with you to discuss a business opportunity. Marcus had almost said no, almost told the assistant that he'd given Victoria all the closure she was going to get. But curiosity won. The meeting happened Wednesday evening in a conference room on the 20th floor. Victoria sat at one end of a table that could seat 20, papers spread out before her, a laptop open, coffee in a mug that bore the Ashford Industries logo. She gestured to the chair across from her. Please, sit. Marcus sat. I've been thinking about what you said, about the employees here who can't afford health insurance, who work multiple jobs, who sacrifice everything and get nothing back. She slid a folder across the table. Open it. Inside, Marcus found a single sheet of paper, a job offer. Position, Director of Employee Support Services. Salary, $120,000 per year. Benefits, full medical, dental, vision coverage for employee and dependents. His heart stopped. What is this? A new position I'm creating. We're going to completely restructure how this company treats its employees. Health insurance for everyone, regardless of position. Flexible scheduling for parents. Emergency support programs for people dealing with medical crises. Victoria leaned forward, and I want you to help me design it. You know what these employees need because you've lived it. I can throw money at programs all day, but without someone who understands the reality, it'll be nothing but corporate PR. Marcus stared at the paper. The salary alone would change everything. Insurance for Emma, a better apartment, the ability to breathe without calculating every dollar. Why me? Because you're the only person who's ever made me feel ashamed of who I am. Because you showed me what real courage looks like. Because you saved my daughter's life when you had every reason to let her die. Her voice cracked. And because I think you might be the only person in this entire company who will tell me the truth even when I don't want to hear it. Marcus thought about Emma, about the health insurance that would finally cover her heart condition, about doing meaningful work again, using his mind instead of just his hands. He also thought about the lobby, the humiliation, the 3 years of being invisible. I have conditions, Victoria nodded. Name them. The program has to be real, not PR. If I tell you something needs to change, you actually change it. Agreed. You have to treat your employees differently. All of them. I don't want what happened to me to happen to anyone else. I understand. Marcus met her eyes. One more thing. You have to mean it. If this is just about making yourself feel less guilty, I'm not interested. But if you're serious about changing, really changing, then I'll help. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Marcus watched her face, looking for any sign of insincerity, any hint that this was just another calculated move in a game he didn't understand. What he saw instead was something fragile, something that looked like hope trying to survive in hostile territory. I mean it. I don't know if I can change. I've been this way for so long. But I want to try. I want to be someone my daughter can be proud of. She paused. Will you help me? Marcus looked at the job offer one more time, thought about satellites versus human beings, about the future versus the present, about running away versus standing ground. Yeah, I'll help you. Victoria's face transformed, relief flooding her features like sunrise breaking over landscape. Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. He stood and extended his hand. Partners? Victoria took it. Her grip was firm but not aggressive. Just two people making a deal. Partners. Marcus started the following Monday. His first week consisted of meetings with AR, with finance, with department heads who looked at him with barely concealed skepticism. A janitor designing employee programs. The whispers followed him through hallways, into elevators, past water coolers. He ignored them. By week 2, he was out on the floor, talking to people, the cleaning staff, the security guards, the cafeteria workers, everyone who kept Ashford Industries running but never got invited to meetings or asked their opinions. He listened, took notes in a battered notebook he'd used for engineering calculations back when calculations mattered. Frank Rodriguez was an electrician, 22 years with the company. Type 2 diabetes diagnosed last year. He hadn't seen a doctor in 11 months. The deductible is $3,000. I don't have $3,000, so I just hope I don't die before my son graduates high school. Linda Martinez worked reception. Her mother had dementia. Linda left early twice a week for medical appointments and got docked 2 hours of pay every time. My supervisor says rules are rules. I tried explaining that my mother doesn't recognize me half the time, that I'm all she has. He said that's not the company's problem. James Cooper pulled night shift security. His son had asthma. James could only afford half doses of the inhaler the boy needed. I give him what I can and pray it's enough. Every night I go to bed wondering if this is the night he stops breathing. Marcus wrote it all down. Every story, every struggle, every quiet tragedy playing out behind the polished facade of corporate success. Then he brought them to Victoria. They met twice a week in her office. Marcus laid out the problems, the gaps in coverage, the punitive policies, the 1,000 small cruelties that added up to a system designed to extract maximum labor while providing minimum support. Victoria listened. At first, her instinct was defensive. The CEO reflex to justify, to explain, to minimize. Frank Rodriguez, electrician, diagnosed with diabetes. He hasn't seen a doctor in 11 months because our health plan has a $3,000 deductible he can't afford. That's the industry standard deductible. Victoria caught herself mid-sentence, shook her head. No, I'm doing it again, making excuses. Marcus waited. What do we need to do? Lower the deductible, cap out-of-pocket expenses, make the insurance actually usable for people who live paycheck to paycheck. The board will fight me on the ground. Then fight back. That's what you're good at, isn't it? Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Something that might have been a smile crossed her face. You're not afraid of me at all anymore, are you? I was never afraid of you. No, I suppose you weren't. She picked up her pen and started writing. Lower deductible, capped expenses. What else? They worked late into the evening. When Marcus finally left the building at 8, he found Emma waiting in the lobby with Victoria's assistant, who'd volunteered to watch her while they worked. Daddy, I drew pictures of satellites. Ms. Chen helped me look up what they look like. Marcus scooped her into his arms. Did you have fun? So much fun. Can I come back tomorrow? We'll see, sweetheart. He carried her toward the exit, past the marble floors he used to mop, past the elevators he used to clean, past the security desk where Earl waved goodnight like they were colleagues instead of janitor and guard. Marcus wasn't invisible anymore. The Ashford Jensen Employee Initiative launched on a Monday morning in early November. The same lobby where Marcus had been humiliated 3 months earlier now held a stage, rows of chairs, banners proclaiming a new era of employee dignity. Marcus stood beside Victoria wearing a suit she'd insisted on buying. He felt like an imposter in the tailored fabric, but Emma had declared him handsome, and that was enough. Victoria stepped to the microphone. The lobby fell silent. "Thank you all for coming. I know you're wondering why I called this meeting." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Most of you have heard the story. The janitor who saved my daughter after I publicly humiliated him that morning. The laughter died. His name is Marcus Jensen. He's standing beside me now. If it weren't for him, my daughter Lily would be dead. She paused, letting the words settle. But more than that, if it weren't for Marcus, I would still be the same person I was 3 months ago. Cruel, dismissive, convinced that power meant never having to see the humanity in people around me. Her voice caught briefly. Marcus taught me something I should have learned long ago. Dignity is not earned. It is inherent. The phrase landed like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading outward. Victoria outlined the program: full health insurance, flexible scheduling, emergency assistance, a company that would treat its people like human beings instead of machinery. This program exists because of Marcus Jensen. He designed it, he fought for it, and he's going to make sure it actually works. She stepped back. Marcus approached the microphone, heart pounding against his ribs. "I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what all of you are going through. Every struggle is different." He looked out at the faces, janitors in the back, executives in front, everyone in between. "But I know what it feels like to be invisible. I know what it feels like to work 2 jobs and still not afford a doctor's visit for your kid." His voice steadied. "My daughter has a heart condition. For 3 years, I've been terrified that something would happen and I wouldn't be able to afford treatment. That fear sat in my chest every single day." Emma sat in the front row beside Lily, both girls watching with identical expressions of pride. This program won't solve everything, but it might mean one less parent has to choose between a doctor's appointment and a paycheck. It might mean one less child grows up wondering why their parent is always tired and scared. He looked at Victoria. "That's worth something. That's worth everything." The lobby erupted in applause, people standing, cheering, some crying. Marcus stepped back, overwhelmed by the sound, by the weight of expectations, by the knowledge that he'd just promised to change lives and had no idea if he could deliver. But he would try. For Emma, for Frank and Linda and James, for every person who'd ever been called invisible. He would try. 3 weeks after the launch, Marcus saw the first results. Frank Rodriguez stopped him in the hallway, tears in his eyes. "My son asked me yesterday if I'd be around for his wedding someday. First time I could honestly say yes." Linda Martinez got her flexible schedule approved. No more docked pay, no more choosing between her mother and her paycheck. "I don't feel like a criminal anymore. I can just be a daughter taking care of her mother." James Cooper's Horpiton got the full dose of asthma medication he needed. The attack stopped. James showed Marcus a video on his phone. The boy running in a soccer game, laughing. "Free. That's because of you, Marcus." Marcus shook his head. "That's because of the program." James smiled. Same thing. The girls became inseparable. Every weekend, one family visited the other. Sometimes Marcus and Emma took the bus across town to Victoria's estate, a sprawling property with gates and gardens and more rooms than Marcus could count. Emma's eyes had gone wide the first time she saw it. "Daddy, do kings live here?" Victoria had laughed, a real laugh, not the sharp sound Marcus remembered from their first encounters. "Something like that, sweetheart." Other times, Victoria and Lily came to Marcus's apartment. Victoria had stood in the doorway that first visit, taking in the cramped space, the second-hand furniture, the water stain on the ceiling that the landlord kept promising to fix. Marcus had braced for judgment. "It feels like a home." Her voice had been soft. "It's small. It feels loved. That's more important." They'd sat at his kitchen table drinking instant coffee. The expensive stuff Victoria preferred didn't exist in his pantry, and talked about their childhoods. Victoria's father had built his company from nothing, started in a garage smaller than Marcus's apartment, worked 90-hour weeks until the breakthrough came. Nobody knows that. It doesn't fit the narrative. Billionaire CEO born with silver spoon. The truth always messier than the story. Yeah, it is. Emma developed a jealous streak. When Lily showed Marcus a picture she'd drawn, Emma's face had darkened. "That's my daddy." Victoria had handled it gently. "He helped save my life, Emma. We can share him." Emma had pouted, then apologized. Another time, she'd gotten frustrated when Marcus worked late on the program 3 nights in a row. "You're always at work now, just like before." Marcus had knelt to her eye level. "This work is for kids like you, kids whose parents can't take them to the doctor." Emma had crossed her arms. "Okay, but you have to read 2 stories tonight." "Deal." Lily's 8th birthday fell on a Saturday in late November. Victoria threw a party at the estate, dozens of children from Lily's private school, parents sipping champagne, a professional magician performing tricks that cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. Emma had spent 3 days making Lily's gift, a scrapbook filled with drawings, photos from their hospital visits, ticket stubs from the movies they'd seen together. Every page decorated with stickers and glitter that Marcus would be finding in his apartment for months. On the drive over, Emma had grown quiet. What if she has too many presents and mine gets lost? Marcus had pulled her close. "It won't get lost. It's the most important one." "How do you know?" "Because it's the only one that tells the story of your friendship. All the other presents are just things. Yours is a memory." Emma had smiled, satisfied with the logic. The gift opening happened on the lawn. Lily sat surrounded by boxes wrapped in expensive paper, ribbons cascading like waterfalls. She opened tablets and designer clothes and toys that probably required engineering degrees to assemble. Each gift received a polite thank you before being set aside. Then she reached Emma's scrapbook. The lawn went quiet. Even the adults stopped talking, watching the birthday girl slowly turn pages. Lily's face transformed, wonder giving way to joy, giving way to tears. She looked up at Emma. "This is the best present anyone has ever given me. Ever." Lily jumped up and ran to Emma, wrapping her in a hug that nearly knocked them both over. The other children stared in confusion. Their expensive gifts lay forgotten on the grass. Victoria's hand touched Marcus's arm. "You've raised an extraordinary child." Marcus watched his daughter hold her friend, both of them crying happy tears. She raised herself. "I just tried not to get in the way." "That's not true, and you know it." Marcus didn't argue. He just stood beside Victoria in the autumn sunlight, watching their daughters define what mattered, and felt something shift in the space between them. Christmas Eve arrived with snow. Marcus and Emma stood at their apartment window, watching flakes drift past streetlights, painting the world in shades of white and gold. Emma had asked the question 3 days earlier. "Can Lily and her mommy come for Christmas?" Lily said they just eat at restaurants. "That's sad. Nobody should be alone on Christmas." Marcus had hesitated. The intimacy of sharing holidays felt like crossing a line he wasn't sure existed. But he'd called Victoria anyway. Her voice had cracked when she answered. "Really? You're inviting us?" Emma insisted, a long pause. "I haven't had a real Christmas since my father died 23 years ago. I always thought it was overrated. Now I think maybe I just didn't have anyone to spend it with." "So you'll come?" Victoria's answer had come out barely above a whisper. "Yes, we'll come." They arrived at 5 carrying bags of presents. Marcus had spent the day cooking Rachel's recipes. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, apple pie from scratch. The apartment smelled like memory and hope. Emma had decorated with the determined enthusiasm of a 6-year-old given free rein. Paper snowflakes covered every window. The small artificial tree in the corner bore ornaments she'd made from construction paper and dreams. Victoria stopped in the doorway. Emma did most of it. She wanted it to feel like a real Christmas. Victoria's eyes shone. "It does. It feels exactly like a real Christmas." They ate together at the extended table Marcus had borrowed from his neighbor. The girls chattered endlessly, building inside jokes and shared language. Marcus and Victoria exchanged glances across the mashed potatoes, both of them recognizing something neither could name. After dinner presents. Lily loved everything: toys from Victoria, books from Marcus, handmade jewelry from Emma. Emma squealed over the art supplies Victoria had brought, immediately spreading them across the floor to draw. Then Marcus pulled out one last gift, a small box wrapped in silver paper. "This is for you." Victoria unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a photograph in a simple wooden frame, both families standing together at the program launch. Marcus, Victoria, Lily, Emma, all smiling. Beneath the photo, Emma's careful handwriting spelled out two words: our family. Victoria stared at it for a long time. When she looked up, tears were streaming down her face. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. This is the best gift anyone has ever given me. She laughed through the tears. I keep saying that, but it keeps being true. Victoria stood and crossed the room. Before Marcus understood what was happening, she was hugging him, her arms around his shoulders, her face pressed against his neck, her body shaking with sobs she'd been holding back for months. Marcus froze. Then slowly, carefully, he hugged her back. Thank you for everything, for saving Lily, for giving me a chance, for showing me what family really means. Her voice was muffled against his shoulder. You showed yourself. I just opened the door. Victoria pulled back, wiping her eyes, laughing at herself. Look at me, crying on Christmas Eve like a child. Nothing wrong with crying. It means you're alive. Is that another thing Rachel used to say? Yeah, it is. Victoria smiled, unguarded, genuine, beautiful in its vulnerability. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. Eventually, after giving you a very hard time first. I probably would have deserved it. Definitely. They both laughed. Across the room, Emma and Lily looked up from their art supplies with matching confusion. What's so funny? Nothing, sweetheart. Just grown-up stuff. Emma turned to Lily. Grown-up stuff is weird. Lily nodded solemnly. The weirdest. New Year's Eve brought more snow. Marcus and Emma stood at their window watching midnight approach. The city spread out below them in lights and possibilities. Daddy, this was the best year ever. Emma's voice carried absolute certainty. Even though we were sad sometimes? Marcus thought of Rachel, of loss, of everything they'd survived. Even though it was hard. Emma was quiet for a moment. Mommy says being sad and being happy aren't opposites. She says you can be both at the same time. When did she tell you that? In my dreams. I dream about her sometimes. Marcus's throat tightened. What else does she tell you? She says she's proud of you. She says you're doing a good job. She says to keep going even when it's hard. Emma looked up at him with Rachel's eyes, and she said it's okay to love new people. That loving new people doesn't mean you love her less. It just means your heart is getting bigger. Marcus pulled Emma close, holding her against his chest while she explained how the universe worked according to a woman who'd been dead 3 years but still guided them through dreams and memory. Outside, fireworks began to paint the sky. His phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. Happy New Year. Thank you for making this the best year I can remember, Marcus typed back. Same. Here's to next year. Her response came immediately. Here's to next year. And all the years after that. Marcus smiled, set the phone down, lifted Emma to see the fireworks better. Happy New Year, Daddy. Happy New Year, sweetheart. I love you. I love you too. More than satellites, way more than satellites. Emma giggled. More than chocolate ice cream? More than all the chocolate ice cream in the world. Marcus held his daughter and watched the sky explode in color and light. A new year, a new chapter. Everything Rachel had prepared them for without knowing she was preparing them at all. Tuesday morning brought an email that changed everything. Marcus was reviewing insurance claims in his new office, a space on the 20th floor with an actual door and a window that looked out over the city, when his inbox chimed. The sender was Tom Bradley. Marcus hadn't heard from Tom in 5 years. They'd worked together at Lockheed Martin, collaborated on guidance systems, presented papers at conferences. The subject line read, Opportunity. Marcus, hope this finds you well. NASA's developing a new deep space satellite program. They specifically asked for you by name. 3 of your patents are foundational to the project. Salary, $180,000 a year. Location, Houston, Texas. Start date, March 1st. This is your chance to come back, to be an engineer again, to do what you were meant to do. Coffee, Thursday if you're interested. Tom Marcus read it 3 times. Each time his heart beat a little faster. Each time the pull toward his old life grew stronger. This was what he'd trained for, what he was brilliant at, what Rachel would have wanted, for him to use his gifts, to do meaningful work, to be Marcus Jensen, the aerospace engineer, instead of Marcus Jensen, the guy who'd pushed a mob. He thought about Emma in Houston, better schools, more opportunities, a future that looked like the one they'd planned before cancer stole it. But he also thought about Frank Rodriguez, about Linda Martinez, about James Cooper and his son who could finally breathe, about the 1,000 people depending on him to keep fighting for programs that actually worked. And he thought about Victoria, still learning, still changing, still fragile in ways that power and money couldn't protect against. He typed a response. Coffee sounds good. See you Thursday. Marcus didn't tell Victoria, not yet. He needed to understand what this meant before bringing her into it. Thursday afternoon, he met Tom at a coffee shop near Ohio State's campus. Tom looked exactly the same, wire-rimmed glasses, prematurely gray hair, the casual confidence of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. They talked about old times, old projects, colleagues who'd moved on to Boeing or SpaceX or early retirement. Then Tom got to the point. NASA wants you, Marcus, specifically you. They've reviewed your work on adaptive guidance algorithms, and they're convinced you're the only person who can make this deep space program work. Marcus stirred his coffee without drinking it. I'm doing important work here. Tom leaned forward. You're designing employee benefits programs. With all due respect, anyone can do that. But this satellite program, this is what you were born to do. Marcus thought about explaining that employee benefits weren't just spreadsheets and policies. They were Frank's diabetes medication and Linda's mother and James's son breathing easy. He didn't. I need to think about it. Tom nodded. 2 weeks. NASA needs an answer by January 20th. Marcus walked home through cold that burned his lungs. 2 weeks to decide between the life he'd lost and the life he'd built, between satellites and human beings, between the past and whatever came next. That evening, he told Emma. They sat at the kitchen table, hot chocolate steaming between them. Emma was drawing another picture of satellites, her new obsession since learning what Marcus used to do. There's a job in Houston, working on satellites again, like I used to. Emma's eyes lit up. Like the old pictures? When you wore suits? Yeah, but we'd have to move. Leave Columbus. Emma's face fell. What about Lily? She's my sister. Marcus's heart cracked. You could still visit. It's not the same. She got very quiet, then looked up at him with eyes too old for 6 years. Would you be happy there? Marcus tried to answer honestly. I don't know, baby. Would I see you more or less? Probably less. The work is very demanding. Emma nodded slowly, processing information like a judge weighing evidence. Then I don't want to go. I want you here, even if you're a janitor or a director or anything. I just want you. Marcus pulled her into his arms and held on while she explained what mattered in the world. And it had nothing to do with satellites or salaries or second chances at engineering careers. It had everything to do with being present, being visible, being enough. Thursday evening, Marcus sat in Victoria's office. She'd stayed late working on the board presentation for program expansion. Coffee had gone cold in her mug. Papers covered the table. I need to tell you something. Victoria looked up from her laptop. NASA offered me a position. In Houston. Deep Space Satellite Program. It's what I used to do. What I'm trained for. Victoria went very still. Marcus watched her face cycle through reactions. Shock, understanding, loss. Houston. Her voice came out flat. Yeah. Silence stretched between them like a physical distance that hadn't existed before. You should take it. Marcus hadn't expected that. What? You should take it. It's an incredible opportunity. It's what you deserve. But her hands were shaking. Marcus saw it clearly, the fear underneath the words, the desperate desire for him to stay warring with the knowledge that she had no right to ask. Victoria, I haven't decided. Of course you should go. You're wasted here. You're an aerospace engineer, not a... She stopped herself. Not a what? Victoria's voice cracked. I didn't mean... I know what you meant. Marcus stood, started toward the door. Wait, wait. Victoria's composure shattered. Please don't go. I know I have no right to ask. I know you owe me nothing. But please. She was crying now, past the point of hiding it. Lily needs Emma. She stopped, started again. The program needs you. We're not ready. I'm not ready. Marcus had never seen her like this. Completely unguarded, completely vulnerable. The CEO mask lying in pieces at her feet. I'm sorry, that's not fair. You should do what's best for you and Emma. Forget I said anything. Marcus walked to the window, looked out at Columbus spread below like a circuit board of lights and lives and choices that mattered more than he'd understood. He thought about Rachel asking him what truly mattered, about Emma saying she just wanted him, about Frank and Linda and James whose lives had changed because someone finally saw them, about Victoria, broken, trying, still becoming someone worth being. I'm staying. Victoria's breath caught. What? I'm staying. I'm turning down NASA. Marcus, you don't have to. I'm not doing it for you. He turned from the window. I'm doing it for me. He stepped closer. For 3 years, I pushed a mop and convinced myself I was doing it for Emma. And I was. But I was also hiding from grief, from risk, from the possibility of caring about something again. His voice steadied with certainty. This job, the program, the employees, the actual human impact, this matters to me. More than satellites. Emma matters. Having dinner with her every night matters. He paused. And Lily matters. And you matter. And I'm not running away from that anymore. Victoria was crying openly now. I don't deserve. Stop saying that. Maybe you didn't deserve it 3 months ago, but you've changed. You're still changing. And I want to be part of that. Marcus met her eyes. I'm not saying I'm in love with you. I'm not ready for that. Maybe I never will be. Victoria nodded through tears. But I'm saying I want to see what this becomes. I want to keep building what we're building. Together. Victoria's voice came out barely above a whisper. I can wait, however long it takes, or if it never happens. I'm grateful you're staying. Marcus extended his hand across the space between them. Partners? Victoria took it. Partners. They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who'd started as enemy and victim, now standing as equals, building something neither could have imagined. Not romance, not yet, maybe not ever. But partnership, trust, the beginning of something that looked like redemption earned through work instead of words. Marcus called Tom Bradley the next morning. I'm turning down the NASA position. Tom's disappointment carried through the phone. Are you sure this is once in a lifetime? I'm sure. I have work to do here. Work that matters. A pause. I respect that. If you ever change your mind, thank you, Tom. But I won't. 6 months later, Marcus stood on a stage in the same lobby where he'd been called invisible. The Ashford Jensen Employee Initiative had expanded to 15 companies nationwide. Marcus was speaking at conferences, being interviewed by business journals, becoming known in corporate responsibility circles. Victoria's leadership style had transformed. Still tough, still demanding, but fair, human. The board was happy, employee retention up 40%, productivity up, stock price climbing. Treating people well turned out to be good business. Emma and Lily were inseparable. Weekly sleepovers, shared birthday parties, both calling themselves sisters without qualifier or hesitation. Emma's heart condition remained stable, covered by insurance, monitored by doctors who didn't require Marcus to choose between rent and medication. Marcus and Victoria remained partners. Not romantic, not yet, but something deeper than friendship, built on trust and shared purpose, and the knowledge that they'd both been broken and chose to heal together. The anniversary ceremony drew over 1,000 people, employees and families, press coverage, the recognition that change was possible when people chose to see each other. Marcus stepped to the microphone for the final speech. A year ago, I was mopping this floor. He paused, letting the weight of that truth settle. Today, I stand here as director of a program that's helped over 1,000 families. He looked at Victoria beside him. But more than that, I stand here as someone who's no longer invisible. None of us are. His eyes moved across the crowd. Janitors, security guards, executives, everyone. You matter. You are seen. You always were. We just needed to learn how to look. The applause was deafening. Afterward, Marcus and Victoria stood at her office window watching the sunset over Columbus. The ceremony had ended. The crowd dispersed. Just the two of them looking at a city where invisible people were finally being seen. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Victoria's voice was quiet. Thank you for seeing me. Victoria's hand found his. Not romantic. Just connection, support, partnership. They stood together as the sky turned gold and amber and finally deep blue. Two people who destroyed and saved each other, now building something that would outlast them both. Not perfect, not complete, but not alone, and not invisible, never invisible again.